That's right. I'm joined by. I've got a bevy of guests today. It's actually quite exciting. I don't know what to do with myself. There's people all over. I'm obviously joined by my two regular co-hosts. Nikos is there. Hi, Nikos. How you doing?
Hello.
And I'm
How's it
also
going?
joined by Tom Crystals Layton.
True.
But our special.
Sorry, I'm just back on Twitter again because I hate myself. One second. Let me
Okay.
just
And
put
then
something out for all the peoples.
I'm also joined by. We are also joined by just down there our special guest, Rickard. Hi, Rickard. How you doing?
Hey, man. Hello, everyone.
Well,
Nice to be here.
I'm very excited to have you on the show. You are our
Thank you.
Admech expert.
Yes.
Master of the Forge.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah, are you? Is it true that you are half robot yourself from the waist down?
I do have a toaster pet.
And Neil's sitting here straight away, of course. You just want
Yeah.
to see a
He
review.
asked me, and I'd actually like to propose a toast for Neil because it's his birthday today. So
It
that's
is.
why.
It is.
So
Happy
yes.
birthday, Neil!
Happy birthday, Neil.
Do you
I'm
take that
so-
toaster with you to tournaments?
I should. I haven't done it yet, but yes, I
You've
should.
definitely sent in a video of you stroking the toaster to
Yeah.
Solomons, but that's about it.
Can we also say that, like, the Thursday show is really becoming a physical comedy show? Last week, a couple of weeks ago, Nick was talking about the big leaks, and he brought in a real physical leak. So the addition of a toaster is perfect. We've almost got enough for a cooking show,
Then there was the surprise leak,
which was a spring onion.
which turned out to be a spring onion. Yeah.
Rickard, I better see you with a toaster next weekend, says GST Peaches. So, Rickard, you are based. Can we just find out a little bit about you? Where are you based? How long have you been playing Warhammer? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So Rickard Nilsson is my name. I live in Gothenburg in Sweden on the west coast, the second largest city. And I've been playing 40k since 3rd edition, way back when, doing the Black Templars and amongst other things. Been playing the game off and on until 7th edition. Played Warhammer Fantasy a bit competitively between then. And then when the Admech book hit in 8th edition, I jumped on that project and found out after a year or so that, hey, I was actually quite high in the ranking and figured if I go to the LVO, I might have a shot at actually being the best Admech player in the world that year. But Justin Lois beat me with, a couple of points.
Oh,
Yeah.
heartbreak.
I wonder what I did to do that.
What
Same
was
as
it
everyone
about?
else, the Castellan.
Oh, well, okay.
Can we? Before, I know we're going to talk Admech later. So if you guys have just joined us live, I just want to say massive thank you for joining us live, as always, wherever you're watching from. Feel free to ask any questions or talk to us about anything in the chat, and I'll read it out. I also want to thank you, everyone who's listened to the podcast. Please stay hydrated. I'm pretty certain this will be the podcast that tips us over 1 million downloads, which I'm pretty excited about. Thank you very much for being one of the listeners. Big love to you guys. And of course, thank you to everyone on the Patreon. Couldn't do without you. Love each other. Stay kind. Stay big. Stay fresh. Retisenti, thanks for subscribing. You guys are great. And Echo Scorpion says, hey, Waynesboro Vahav, or Vahir. I think maybe this is all Swedish that I don't understand. The only thing I really know about Sweden, which isn't accurate, because I was there last year. I was actually in Stockholm for an Age of Sigmar event, at an event called Krigsluntan, which was great. There was a couple of the guys over from Gothenburg. They were all wearing kilts. I don't know if you are one of the kilt Warhammer players. Are you in their club?
No, I only know of one, Daniel Hesselberg, that usually wears a kilt. So no.
That's Papa D, right?
Yeah, Papa D, exactly.
Me and Simon Weekly were trying to convince him that we were testing stompers for Worlds last year, and he didn't believe us, and we were very disappointed.
Yeah, so therefore the only thing I really know about Sweden is Norway are better skiers. That's basically all I know. I'm not sure if you want to
That's
confirm.
the arch nemesis.
All right, well, we're going to fire off. We're going to do news today about 40k, of which there's a bunch, and then we're going to talk about Admech, which is why Rickard's here, so it's going to be really fun. So quickly before we do that, have any of you three, Nick, Tom, Rickard, you been doing any hobby the past week? Very quick.
I've been doing some painting. Actually, I painted all my Admech models. So I started on a little Tau project. So
Oh, there you go. That
doing
was
this
cool.
little,
That looks good, mate. I like that.
Nice.
That's
The
great.
white's really crisp.
a lot different from painting like my dark red Admech. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That's fun.
Are you an airbrush man or standard paintbrush?
Both actually. So trying a bit of combination now. So the source lighting is of course airbrush because it takes so little time to do and get a good result.
Tau seemed like one of those armies that like is not easy to do, but like you can approach quite quickly if you wanted to.
Yeah.
When I did my supremacy suit, it wasn't actually the biggest labor. It was tougher to build it than it was to paint it. And it was even tougher to put it on the board and watch Seraphim just wipe it out. It was one of the worst games of my life, actually. But we won't talk about my early 8th edition woes. Nick, you done any hobby? You haven't? No, I talked to you already earlier.
No hobby. I played a game, but it wasn't 40k, so it was I think it's a Warlord Games game, Warlords of Erewhon, or as I call it, Warlords of Erewash. But no 40k related hobby, sadly.
Oh, that's a shame. And Tom, you?
I've finished my hobby room. I finished decorating that and getting that all sorted and putting all the models away. And now that I finished that, I've started painting again. So I've painted a Slaneshi Demonette just as kind of a test. I painted that with the Irish last night. And I was just basically just saying whether I like to scheme or not. And now that I do, I'm going to do the rest of my Demonettes. And I'm about to finish my Nurgle shop as well by finishing a... Is this a Poxbringer? I don't know what this is, but it's a HP Jaws. I'm gonna finish it so I can finish off my shelf with my Nurgle battalion. So I've got 2 Poxbringers and 9 Nurglings all finished on that shelf.
Perfect. That's. I also been doing demons, but I've been doing a lot of change. I'd show you all, but
you're doing Siege because you just like cheese.
Yeah, but I've actually painted it in a colour that makes my green screen
Painted it
like
invisible.
Yes, invisible stealth camo paint. I'm really proud of myself. This will be in audio form, available on our podcast, which you can find on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, all that jazz. Any podcast app, basically. Just search The Honest Wargamer. So you can just listen to it there, if that helps you out. You can also watch it back on YouTube. We're everywhere. We're like the plague. So
That's not a good ref to me.
Anyway. News. Let's talk news. Okay, so since we last convened, there's obviously been a lot of information about new 40k, and we're going to talk about some of those elements and the impact. Obviously, but let's set the scene. They said there's going to be 9 big things about 40k, or 9 new things, some of which obviously they've started to expand upon. Streamlining, I think, is one of those things they've expanded upon. Command points, one of those things they've expanded upon, and missions. So I think possibly, or maybe the biggest thing to kick off with is that there's now, with some of the news we've had through the week, there's now a gaming system that is like, we've talked to loads about the 3 ways to play before, those 3 ways being WTC, ITC, or the Games Workshop core book, and now it seems that everyone's on the same page and we're all just going to be playing this one new mission, right? So Rickard, what do you reckon to that?
Yeah, I've had a look at the articles that's been released, and I like it. Seems good. The one that was released today regarding that you would get benefits or penalized for bringing more than one detachment. I found that interesting. So maybe goes back to the old force organization chart a bit more. So that's good.
A bit more standardization, I think, is. Nick, what do you think about the ITC being ratified? Is that how we're describing it or not?
Well, I don't think they've not gone full ITC. They've gone ITC-ish, haven't they? I think
they've gone Nova.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I like the fact that there's secondary missions. I think it gives each army different flexibility and a little bit. They can pick how they're going to play that game, so it gives them a chance against whatever opponent they're playing. I'm glad they don't appear to have chosen like the ITC mission format with like kill one, hold one, kill more, hold more. And the bonus point, which was barely worth playing for. The main thing that I liked about ITC was the secondaries. So that's a cool thing that's sort of been ported over. So I like it.
Tom, what are your thoughts?
I want to see the whole thing in full context before I really make any conclusions on it. I can talk about what I think Might be slightly better, might be slightly worse with new missions, but I don't want to come to a full judgment on whether or not I'm going to like it based off like little parts, because that just leaves me to like nitpick and not judge it as a whole.
Okay, well, like I think one of the things that's interesting, obviously, always when the new edition coming up, is everyone feels a little bit in like a flux. Like, what do I build?
Yeah.
How do I like? Even if the army I was building and painting, how's that going to go forward? And I think some of the things that are there are really, really interesting. For me, the missions are, and I said this obviously earlier on the show, but I am excited about the missions. They have done some incredibly good bits that I like, and if any of you don't agree with this, then feel free to push back. Number one, fixed deployment. In love with that. Like, number two, fixed objectives. In love with that. So the speed of the game at the start is definitely going to increase, which I personally feel is a huge bonus. And no matter what else, that's brilliant. Anyone disagree? Got any thoughts?
I agree, and I guess it comes down to the new terrain rules as well, because terrain is so important right now in the current ITC format, at least, with like having the standard big Ls from the London GT style terrain or the Nova Ls. So it's going to be really important to see if they can balance out the new missions with the terrain rules as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think for me.
So do you think there's going to be fixed terrain maps as well as a deployment map as well?
Not sure actually. It might be like player placed, but that would bring up the time again of the game. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think. Well, there's no point saying what we think. I'd like to see some also standardized terrain maps, very much akin to like we did coverage at the beginning of the year. Obviously, we talked about. We felt like you might not have seen it, Rickard, but at the beginning of the year we did some live coverage of a 40k event, and we always do multi-table coverage now. So we jump between all these different tables, and it felt like we were playing the same map every time.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to see I'd like to see something that effectively changes that up. But I do love the idea of going to have to hold objectives. I think that's really fun, and I think that one of the key elements of 40k that's been lacking, especially in the ITC mission pack, is that going and holding objectives. I know there was also hold more, or just hold one or hold more, but it didn't really feel like it was a key element to the game. I think making armies have to move means that they can't play the way that they necessarily want to play, unless they're an army that moves everywhere. #Eldar. But I don't know. Anyway, so I like that. I like fixed placement. I like that. I thought that was cool. And then we've seen secondaries, and that there's going to be a list of secondaries available to each army. Well, a list of core secondaries, and then a bunch of secondaries available to each army. So what do you guys make of that? Any thoughts?
Well, we don't really know. Do we know how many we're going to have to take?
No, we don't know that yet.
No.
We don't know that yet. Well, one of the things that came up today is that the one battle plan that we did see, you can max score 15 victory points a turn, and then it's capped at that for scoring in your command phase, which would happen after your opponents had their turn at the beginning of your turn. So you have to go onto an objective, hold it during your opponent's turn, and then be able to score it at the beginning of your next turn. So not the easiest thing to do, really. Depending on the situation. But so potentially, depending on how many turns the game is, because we currently don't know if there's also a fixed term, which I'd be very excited. Fixed turn number, which I'd be quite interested in there being a fixed turn number. I don't know what everyone else thinks about that.
Yeah. Also, we don't know from the mission how you deploy, because they've sort of flip-flopped a little bit about how to deploy, whether you're alternating or someone's going all down first. I don't think that's in the mission that we've seen. Whether that's standardized in the core rulebook or not, don't know.
Yeah, and we'll see with the potentially new table size as well. If it becomes smaller, then obviously that's going to change a lot of things as well, how you build your army.
Yeah, hot gossip earlier on is that tables might be 5x4, but we we had this conversation earlier today. I mean, that would be. What do you think, Rickard, about a 5x4 table? Any thoughts?
Well, I counted the pixels in the map that they put out, and it's 60 by 44 inches. And if you compare it to the maps in the current book, that's also true if you count the distances they have there. So, well, I'm not sure, but if that's true, then I guess close combat's going to be a bit more viable. Like you have a lot more first turn charges
Yeah.
things like that. So, and we'll see with the new terrain rules if you get more like cover for and obscuring line of sight for close combat armies, then that could be good.
I think it's really exciting.
Mm.
Then the so new missions look great, secondaries, and now we've heard the introduction of actions. So actions are a new element being brought into the game where units can give up either shooting or fighting in order to plant a flag, place a homing beacon, put that in the game. Which is kind of interesting because so that's kind of top level of some of the stuff. But if we dig down into the nitty gritty, one of the things about the information that's come out is that hordes are going to be in a difficult spot. Effectively, well, that's some of the information that we've heard, and some people will be happy about that. I don't know, Custodians players. Nick, as someone who's got 240 York boys, I don't think you're the happiest about that information, right?
I'll be very upset if they nerf hordes. I know they can be really unwieldy and quite time consuming to play at times, but I think you find ways as a horde player to speed up the game, like dice rolling apps, movement trees, and just being generally faster on the table. But I can see the argument for making hordes, speeding up the game by making hordes slightly worse.
Yeah.
Well, they have said specifically today that they want to make more elite choices more viable, and that's why they've introduced actions.
Yeah, so Tom, me and Tom had a quick conversation about this earlier. Those two effects seem a little bit congruent, right? So we want elite armies to be more effective. Cool. So I have a pure Custodians army, and now I want you to give up your shooting from that Custodians unit in order to plant a flag. That seems to be incongruent with, whereas I would really want my 10 guardsmen to plant a flag. They're all about that life, whereas my elite armies go off and fight. So, but I think that's nice because the changes we've seen to the Force Org chart, that would mean that, I'm going to want, I think, elements that are going to do the almost not playing the game for the war element, just the running around, being a part of planting flags and doing things show. Which I think is quite unique. I don't know. Honestly, for me personally, what do you guys think of the actions? I'm actually quite excited to see it in action. Excuse me, I'm going home. I don't need to make any more jokes.
I think it's good. It's going to be a bit more narrative based. If like the Grey Knight player can do some kind of magic ritual of banishment or something to get points. I mean, it gives you a narrative edge to what's going on in the game, and I like that. So that's good.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah.
I also think, and the secondary that we saw in the battle plan means also you're encouraged to play the mission even more because you get points for that, which I find quite unique as well. The idea that there's also going to be faction-specific ones, which they've said will come later on, I actually think is really exciting because I think we might be able to get units that don't see a lot of play in the game normally. They might have a utility, a bit like with engineers for ITC.
Yeah.
But,
Exactly.
Go on, Nick.
I was going to say, does it seem weird to anyone else that it's called an action, but your unit has to basically do nothing to perform the action? I know there's a narrative.
You have to generate it in your head, Nick. Or something.
I know, yeah. It's a narrative imagined action, but actually in the game, your unit's doing nothing. So it's weird calling it an action.
It is very weird. It is really weird, but it seems genuinely quite interesting. So the other bit, which I think this is the key element that we talked about a little bit before. I think Games Workshop, of course, are going to be a little bit disingenuous with how they talk about the new edition because they're intending to make us feel like it's going to be the best thing ever. But I do feel like this change to how we build armies is so massive. I feel maybe you guys could push back on this. I'm not sure how you feel, but I feel how we build armies now it seems drastically changed. If we're playing 2,000 points, we start off with 12 CP. If we take a battalion detachment and fill that out, we get that should cost 3 CP to take. But if our warlord's inside it, it won't cost 3 CP. Now, if I want another detachment, like a battalion detachment, I know it's going to cost me 3 of that 12 CP to take, which is quite interesting. What do you guys make of that?
Unless your warlord's in the detachment.
Well, yeah. So the initial, so you're already going to take a battalion detachment every time, right? So you start with a battalion, and then you're going to pay 3 CP for another battalion at some point, which means maybe a spearhead might be 2 CP or whatever it might. How do you guys, Tom? I know you've got a feeling about CP when it comes to like gene stealers and stuff.
Oh right, yeah. So when you're generally building lists like gene stealers or to a lesser extent orcs, you generally tend to need a massive pile of CP, which is why in orcs you see triple battalion, why in GSC you see like brigade, battalion occasionally. When you've only got 12 CP, that really a maximum, and then you generate 1 per turn, as we're currently assuming, that's not enough.
It says it in the article. You generate 1 per turn.
There we go. Yeah. But I don't know if there's other ways for them also to get CP as well as that, right? So when you're trying to play something like Gene Stealer cults, you end up being really hamstrung by that. Orcs are hamstrung by it to a lesser extent, because although you can build these lists that require 18 CP, firstly, you can get up to 18 CP if you need to over the course of the game. It just delays it a little bit, which isn't ideal, but it's still workable. Or orcs have far more options, aka you stop taking trash units like looters and you start taking units like Gretchen and smasher guns, and then you just wipe your opponent off the table and run 400 bottles at them.
The Grot Revolutionary Force is
the
coming.
Grot Revolution is real.
Yeah. Rickard, you got any thoughts? Rickard, you got any thoughts about the CP?
Yeah, I guess it's part of the new change towards focusing on vehicles and monsters. So you could take a battalion and get 12 plus 6 CP over the course of the game, while just running a bare minimum of troops, which is an improvement to the amount of CP that kind of list would normally get, and add in a CP regenerating ability. Maybe you got 4 or 5 more over the course of the game, and that's actually quite a lot. So, but I guess that's part of the shift maybe that I've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Rob. I was just going to say we're talking about in the 9 things to watch out in the new edition video. We were talking about how everyone gets more CP, when in reality, what's happening is lists that didn't tend to have much CP anyway, aka things that built 1 battalion potentially, and then maybe a spearhead, or just went flyer wings and what have you, like Eldar. Yeah. They would normally have a maximum of 9 that you'd ever see, and then now they're getting more CP, but the lists that actually used the CP and had to build towards using their CP are getting completely gutted in terms of how many CP they're getting access to.
Yep, and that's probably the shift.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, one of those 9 points was specifically vehicles and monsters are going to be really good. So yeah, I guess it's congruent with that.
Yeah,
yes,
100%.
Yeah, you heard that. You heard that, Tyranid players. Your monsters are now great. Yeah, it's. I like it.
Just get rid of the rule of 3, and the monsters will be even greater. I can promise you.
Yeah. The only thing that I could bring up today, which to people who've played a lot and are already super interested in 40k, it's not going to be a big deal. But I think one of the things that I would like to see from a game system, especially one that I talk about, would be something that would be easy to pick up and harder to master. And I feel like it's a little bit front heavy with information in order to get some new people into it. That's not obviously a huge problem for any of us who are currently playing. And I quite like granularity. And Tom, you've talked about before, you like the game to be a little bit more complicated, because so that it's got more choices. And lots of the article stuff, which is bump, but is saying that they would like the people to, us as players, to be making more choices in game. And I, for one, am a huge proponent of that. And I actually think reducing the CP that people take reduces how much front load that you're going to get on armies, if that makes sense. You see people burning through X amount of CP at the start to make all of these things happen, which is where I think compounds the issue of front load damage. But that's my bit. Some other little bits of information, unless anyone's got any more, is there'll be 5 new core stratagems. The 3 current core stratagems will be staying. This is an issue I have because I hate the CP reroll.
Rob?
I say it, yeah.
How many current core stratagems?
Oh, yes. You got me again, Stu Black, you bastard. When this is obviously a transcribe of the video that was done today. Stu said that there were 3 core stratagems, but of course there are 4. There is also prepared positions.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did. Oh yeah.
And then we know about the mortal wound one when you disengage, right?
It's so crap.
And also which other one? They've rumored the deep strike generic, put something in deep strike.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the reserves mechanic.
Yeah, I think so.
Whatever that is.
And then one more then, I guess.
I think it's going to be really interesting whether or not people actually end up with more CP at the end. But we haven't seen what some of those do. Like maybe if you take a detachment and you fill out all of the heavy support slots, then you generate CP as opposed to, we're not sure. So it's an exciting time. But so 5 new core stratagems, 4 current will be staying. How do you guys feel about the CP reroll staying?
Fine.
What's wrong with it?
No, yeah, it's fine.
That smiley face you've got right there. That's what that smiley, that one where you're like, oh fuck this up, let's re-roll it.
You don't like it now, Rob. Come on.
Yeah, tell us.
Justify your point.
I don't know.
Be honest.
It's not that I don't think rerolls should be a part of the game. I think it's too, like, especially with elite armies or elite choices or a thing that's really likely to happen. You make it so much more likely to happen when you're able to re-roll that. It's like, and people realise that when you look at an army list or an ability or a psychic power or whatever it might be, and you think happens on a 2+, you're like, well, I'm even more likely to take it because I know I can do something about that in the future. And that's good for competitive players because they want consistency and reliability. But for me, for the drama point in a game, I want someone to do everything, balls out, and then they go, oh, 1. Fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
so you don't like Master Artisan then?
No, I do not.
Like 40 extra command points each game.
And no one else got a problem with that? Twitch chat, all on my own? Just on my own here. You guys are cowards. Roll a 2 up and live with the consequences. That's what I think.
No, we just don't agree with you.
But I agree with you, actually. The game becomes a bit more dramatic when you actually have to, when you fail that double 1 charge.
Oh, of course, but then it's about what you value. Do you want the drama or do you want the, the competitive nature of it? If you want the drama, you're like free to not use a stratagem if you're just playing like casual games with your mates.
Do you not think that the unreliability of what we do in the game is sometimes the fun? Like, that interactivity with your opponent when it doesn't matter. That's too long a conversation. So
we can have that for a day, that's fine.
Yes, another day. So I think that's all of the key information that we've covered. Actions, codexes will get their own actions, which I think is quite interesting. Detachments might get abilities, which is something that got a question, but we don't know any more on that.
I've seen this before.
Yes. We've also... which could be an issue. And I think that's everything we've covered, unless anyone else wants to touch on any of the other bits.
I just want to say that this new system is really going to screw over my Bloodletter Bomb army, because when I was taking my Bloodletter Bomb, I had 3 battalions because you need a lot of CP to deep strike all the Bloodletters, and it costs you. So I ran a 30 and 220, so that costs you 7 CP. So I'll be starting the game with like 5 CP, and then fight twice. I'm already down to 2. So I'd like to see if it's just going to screw it over that much. I won't be able to use that really very well, but maybe there'll be something new in the battalion, in the demon stuff, or the next codex that will make them more viable. Maybe they can just deep strike for free. Who knows? Or use the outflank mechanic. Maybe that's cheaper.
Yeah, I wonder how much. I know that the old codexes are applicable, but I wonder how much they're actually applicable. I would assume that at the start of the edition, like we're getting,
they're probably equivalent of the index.
That's how I feel they are. Yeah, that's how I feel they are, which is weird. Like, I feel like that's going to be the case. And as soon as we get that first book in the new edition, when they've got their own, so they should have, in order, they should have their own ways to do actions. They should have their own way, new stratagems, obviously, and all the other bump that you get with the new codex. So their own way of doing new actions and their own secondary types, which is quite unique, right? To be able, like, as a way to design your army, which I think is cool, but I'm not sure.
They could even have their own detachment style.
They could also have their own style of detachment with unique detachment bonuses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So which is actually, just thinking about that, just quickly before we move on. What about the fact that might cover the problem that we have with subfactions, where every subfaction is free, but not every subfaction is as powerful as the other. In some cases. So if you're doing it through the payment of detachments via CP, you're getting that powerful bonus, but you're CP cheaper or poorer. I think is a better way of describing it. What do you think of that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, but they said they wanted to go away from soup, and that's just making soup easy again.
We were having this discussion earlier about what their intent and what's actually going to happen. It doesn't match up.
It doesn't match up very often. No.
John Ballum Hutch over on Facebook says the new detachment system seems to mess up demons with regards to their loci as well. Pay for detachments means it's going to cost you to make detachments with other gods if you want to keep your loci intact, which I think is intriguing. Yeah, okay. It would be nice to see every Thunderfire cannon not painted yellow, says Macabri. Okay.
I painted mine blue before I repainted them to yellow. I'm not having that nonsense.
Are they not just blue and yellow?
No, not anymore, no.
And to be fair to John on the chat, Loki's got it right, or Loki's got it right. You don't want to mix your gods in your Chaos detachments. That's just weird. You're just being like, they've said they want it to be more narrative, so they're going to punish you for being a creepy weirdo mixing your gods.
Slanesh likes a bit of mixing.
Damn right. Right, should we talk toasters with our toaster expert?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the new Admech Psychic Awakening came out. There was also demons, which is cool as well. Knights. We've seen Knights stuff leaked today, and Chaos Knights. But Admech definitely of all four of those got the most information. And so Rick, it's over to you in this situation. I can't wait to hear what you say. Before we kick off, could you tell us where Admech were before, like where they were currently placed? In the gaming world.
So somewhere around mid-tier, I guess. We had some success with lists at the LVO. There were a couple of transport lists that went really well. The transport spam being very, very resilient with all those toughness 3 12 wound chassis. Toughness 6 3 up save 12 wound chassis. And also the breacher spam that I tried out. I've now gone over more today to the transport list. But yes, we were quite all right, doing well, not so well against the Marines. But after the FAQ, I figured I feel that we still have a chance. So that's
how many transports were in that list?
In the LVO lists?
Yeah, in the transport.
I think they ran about 5, and then three Belarus tanks and 3 Onagers. That was Louis Stolberg, who won the best Admech this year.
Oh, well done, Louis. Also, interesting little side note, that Tom picked up on today, is the new Force org charts say that you can only have 1 transport per infantry unit.
Yeah, that's fine, because, I mean, you have 1 for each troop choice, and then 1 for each priest unit, and then you can have 1 for each character, so you're good. you don't want more than... I have 7 in my list. You probably don't need more than that.
So, what was it about the transport list that how did they perform? Like, how did they play? What was it that they were doing well?
The thing is, when you have the Electro Priest in transports, they are really like resilient and able to get good counter charges, and they're really fast. I think they have an effective charge range of about 19 inches, like average, from the chassis with the Manipulus. So they can control a lot of board space, and you can just build walls with the transports, and then someone charges them. Yeah, you just jump in with Electro Priests. They kill a transport that you sacrificed. Good, you blow it up for 1 command point. You send in another, you blow it up for 1 command point. And after a while, you have a lot of board control as well. I mean, they move 12 with Styges, they scout 9, so they can even go after the bonus objectives turns 1 and so on. So yeah, and really, really cheap. I mean, the point per wound ratio is fantastic.
Okay. All right. And so
do they have much output apart from the exploding?
Yeah, about 100 stubber shots, which is okay, I guess. But combined with the tanks and data loss for +1 to hit against specific targets, and the Electro Priest, and also a lot of plasma in your troops, you can really do some damage. But it's quite a balanced list in a lot of aspects, since it has great mobility, great resilience, and great counter-charging ability. Not the best shooting, but totally okay.
Which is weird, right? Because I look at that Admech range all across, and it feels like a shooting army.
Of course.
like ballistic seal 3 across the board. There's a lot. Like, I feel that's the way it works. So it's really interesting that people have decided to use it more as a combat army. That would have been not where I thought to go.
Well, you can do shooting as well, but I mean, with the new ITC missions, I mean, shooting, you can't really shoot something that's behind a ruin and scoring all the points because it controls the midfield. So you need to be able to get in there with infantry and clear things out and actually compete for that. And priests do that perfectly. They eat up a scout unit or a character or something that comes too close. Suddenly they have a 3-up invo, get it to a 2-up for 2 command points plus 1 attack, and suddenly your opponent has to spend an entire turn dealing with that unit while you're just shooting stubbers and controlling the board and having 2 more of those units in your back pocket if you need them.
I mean, ITC is pretty much about controlling the midfield anyway, because you're denying so much terrain, so many points, as well as that, right? But if you can control the midfield, you pretty much win the game most of the time.
Yeah, no matter how much shooting your opponent has.
Yeah, exactly. Because the boards are so dense anyway, it's like playing on a city.
Yeah, especially with big Ls.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I was going to... Oh, go on. Keep going.
With the scout moving ability for your transports, you can always like deploy them quite offensively and then get into that ruin and actually take cover first turn from that shooting by going forward into the ruin.
Yeah.
So
it's like closing someone down when you're the goalkeeper in football. You're reducing the amount of space someone can shoot at.
I think again, one of the strengths of that is knowing that there's going to be that level of like line of sight blocking terrain in the middle, right? All those ruins. Knowing that's
absolutely.
Like that, which I think, going back to new 40k for a second, I think is going to be really important as an effect that we might see when we know the shape of maps and stuff. People will design lists to work like that, as it seems like that's what you were doing. Were there any other viable ways potentially running Admech, do you think, or not really?
Well, I did the breacher spam list, like 3 big units of 10-ish, 11-ish breachers and big 6-man unit of dragoons. That was a really good list because it didn't really give up kill points. And you could also scout move them, and the breachers had an average of 24 in charge turn 1, and that usually took people like quite off guard, and the dragoons as well, being able to go after the bonus objectives turn 1, and being a really like good distraction. So and
the dragoons take up a lot of board space as well. As someone who's run a bunch of dragoons, and they also can roll really hot sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was another good list, I think, that I saw, and that a couple of others ran as well. And then you had the gun lines, of course, but they struggled against anything that just locked them down previously.
Is that because there was is that because there's no counterpunch?
Yeah, you need the counterpunch. Breachers, the thing why I swapped from breachers was they didn't have the counterpunch. I mean, of course, they could hold their own in close combat a bit, but they couldn't do loads of damage because they only had AP -1, and that really cut it. But the priest, like running 30 priests in boats, is so versatile.
Yeah, the Cataphrons were like really durable, but as you say, it was difficult to get them out of combat. The only thing you really did have was comboing with a Manipulus to increase the range of your flamers to 11 inches, to make it kind of tricky for things to charge you, but there's a lot of things that just don't care about those.
Yeah, and the transport list is actually even more resilient than the breacher list, because there's just so many more wounds with one more toughness, and you can repair them easier and everything.
But
and the points per wound as well, it's really good. It's like Centurions, it's exactly the same principle.
Yep.
And also with wounds that you want to blow up in your opponent's face.
True.
All right, so going into the Psychic Awakening, what did you think that, and obviously new units, what would you have said that Admech needed, really? I'd have said all of the Forge World models to get data sheets. That's what I'd have said.
That's our continuous struggle that we're always whining about every year. But,
I haven't stopped for 3 years. I haven't stopped, not a day.
Awesome. No, but every new unit really brought something, I think, into the list. Some more than others, of course. And we had great discussions over at the Competitive Adeptus Mechanicus Facebook page that I created just before going to my first LVO, like 2.5 years ago. And I think we're over 1,000 people there now. So big shout out to all of you guys. Love you. And this is awesome to have all of your input on this, because now I have a list of like things that you saw that I didn't see, that all these different units can do, like different tricks and combinations.
Just for clarification, Rickard, is it Competitive Pure Adeptus Mechanicus?
Yeah, we changed the name because we had a little a schism with some who wanted to do allies as well. But
split in the community.
That's very Admech.
But it's like the dark Mechanicum.
I saw like since I'm the admin on the page, I saw like when the Admech rules were released, there was like yes, approve. A lot of new people signing up to the group.
There you go.
really fun.
That's lovely. Vort in the chat says he also loves you too. So what, do you did a shout out before we're going to discuss this on the show, saying what stuff have you seen, or is it just generally a chat anyway?
Sorry, one more time.
Oh, no problem. Two things.
Yep.
One, was this just a general conversation that you got all the information that you got from the group? Was that part of a general conversation, or did you tell them that you were coming on to talk about it?
I actually didn't tell them. Neil told everyone. He told the internet that I was coming on. But anyhow, no, we compiled a list of things that we were like wondering about to maybe get FAQ'd in the group as a community, and like, for example, maybe agreeing on not to run the Castellan robots at 45 points each, because the new Phosphor Blaster in the new book is 0 points for some reason. So that's something we kind of agreed on as a community. At least I urged them to be like, don't do that. And then we just looked for like things that could possibly be an issue. Like we were a bit divided on the Dune Rider disembark strats costing 0 command points. Is that a typo? I don't know.
I'm sure there's been another 0 point CP somewhere.
Is there?
I'm sure there is, but I can't remember.
Is it one of the demon ones or the knight ones?
Not the knight.
Well, it'd be very interesting
no,
if there's now going to be just 0 CP strats.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Space Wolves have a 0 PC.
Yeah, vote in the chat, so yeah.
No, but I can go through some of the stuff we found. So there's one warlord trait that lets any friendly vehicle fall back and shoot. So anyone who wants to soup and just have their vehicles fall back and shoot any other army, that's fine, until they fack it. Then obviously the really, really strong ones are that the Forge World specific canticles, which are a bunch. For example, giving your whole army +1 in invo save, giving every heavy weapon +1 strength, and ignore penalty to moving and shooting. These things can, as it is currently, apply to your whole army, no matter which Forge World. So that's really strong. And also being able to buy as many warlord traits as you like, because we got 4 new ones, which are all auras with 3 different warlord traits, and you can choose which one you want each turn. So that's really a Swiss Army knife of auras that you can buy for 4 command points, which are really, really good. So those are things that might be a bit OP, so we'll see about that. I'm waiting with anticipation for the facts. They stated in the 9 points to look out for that. Like the minute 9th drops, there will be facts updating things for each army. So we'll see if we get one before that. I'm not sure we will.
Well, we'll see. I think it's also very nice of you that you as a community are pointing out all the things that might be a mistake and just being like, because honestly, I'd just be like, everyone would be like, they've not done points on the Phosphor Blast. Everyone would be like, shh.
Yeah, no.
Maybe that'd be different if there was a tournament around the corner.
Maybe. Yeah. No, but the community is really like has a good like sporting attitude. I think we like competing against each other for that best Admech player. A lot of us, so we're having a really good time doing that.
I'd also say though, like if you guys don't report yourselves, then it doesn't mean that the Eldar guys or the Orc guys or whoever else have to report themselves. So mutually assured destruction down that road for the next one.
Yeah.
So tell us about the new book and what stands out to you where we're at.
Yeah, so the units, if we look at them, the Sky Stalkers, the jumping guys with the flechette blasters, 15 points apiece, the same points cost as the infiltrators are or used to be. I don't really remember if they went down to 15 or if they went out to 13 now, but they're basically the same function base, 5 shots each and same profile, but they can do swooping hawk bombs when they fly over characters, for example. So it could be really good to just have them in your backfield or like kind of like threatening smash captains and other things to not come too close. Other than that, they have some stratagem to give -1 to hit by shooting at something, which I think is quite okay. But the guys that stand out are the sterilizers, the ones with the flamers, 17 points apiece. And as it stands now, another thing that might get FAQ'd is that currently we can actually embark jump pack infantry in our transports, which means that you have a 26.5 move. Turn 1, if you run them as Styges, and then 12-inch range flamers, and then obviously the charge. And the flamers will do an average of about 30 hits, and they also have 30 attacks with strength 5. And combine that with a canticle of getting +1 strength if you like, or maybe some sulfur hounds to get -1 toughness if you like. That's also one of the new units. But the sterilizers, they're really, really good. And if you combine them with the Lucius +1 Invo and an Inquisitor, you cast 5-up Invo on them, give them the Canticle to 4-up, and spend Acquisitions, and then you suddenly have 3-up sterilizers that can lock enemy infantry on a 2-up for 1 command point, and then just leave and deep strike in again a later round. So there are some really, really they're super mobile and can punch in combat and shoot things.
That sounds horrific.
Oh yeah,
3-up invulnerable save who can make, and then they can just fly away. Wow.
Yeah, I really like the way that they can deep strike, but then also run away and then deep strike again later again.
Exactly.
That's a really nice mechanic.
Yeah, with that range 12 flamers. So yeah.
Yeah, so you're not losing. You're losing a turn because they've got to leave and then come back. But at least when they come back, you are actually getting some shooting out of them.
Exactly, or they can just disembark, of course, or disengage and shoot. So they don't have to jump away by that regard either. The sulfur hounds, the one with the flamers, I'm not too sure on them. The thing they have is they have the Vanguard -1 toughness aura, which can of course be really good if you scout move them up with Styges or something and just charge them into something tough, bring that toughness down 1 step. Then you can put a lot of hurt with, for example, strength 6 in combat sterilizers against toughness 3 Marines. So they have some play with that.
To 2-ups, that's amazing. Yeah, 2s to wound.
Exactly.
That's really fun. But like, I feel like units like that come off the board really quick. Like you start losing a lot of that.
Yeah. Exactly. The thing that makes the sterilizers and Skystalkers very viable at the moment is that they can be in the transports, and that's really, really good. So we'll see if they take that away or not. And the Raiders are really, really good. Brilliant for their points. 14 points each. So that's the cheapest point per wound ratio I think we have in the book. Apart maybe from Servitors, I don't know. But they move 12 and advance before the first round. Couple that with Styges and you got a 36-inch move and then charge and 2 sniper shots each. Also 30 attacks each, strength 4 on the charge, but give them +1 strength canticle and their strength 5. Scout up like an engine seer with the Skitari mask to give them full rerolls in combat. That applies for the sterilizers, Skystalkers, Sulfur Hounds, any of these. So you can really build like a shock army, just going in everywhere and shooting characters and locking things.
Yeah, I wondered about how prevalent we're going to see characters in the new edition with command points and command abilities maybe being used. I wonder if we're going to see more characters than we maybe saw before, or actually because of the detachment changes we might see less. So I was wondering, like, because that's always the question really, I think, with 40k, like, well, not always the question, it's one of the questions, but are characters relevant, like for sniping, do we care? Like when I was playing my orcs, my weird boys were really important to me, but any snipers could take them out with like any sort of stiff breeze. They were just free in the wind basically. So you could reduce my synergy massively, but I wonder if that's going to be important in the new edition. But it's cool that there's something to do there.
One thing is that it's probably going to be a bit capped now if you're only incentivized to take 1 detachment. I mean, that's maximum of 3 characters for a battalion.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I mean, it depends on if they still keep the what's the character detachment, Supreme Command, and how much it costs. I mean, if it only costs 1 command point, then maybe that's an okay cost to pay.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I think me and Tom talked about this a little bit earlier, just offline. We were just saying that characters, like, because you might just actually want those to spend a CP, but then you've also got to get the character tax as well. But if characters start generating CP, then there's a whole new conversation to be had there. Like the parity in Age of Sigmar is most characters now are getting on their war scroll that start of the game on a 4+, you'll get a free CP.
All right.
And that's pretty common. It's not on every one of them. It's on the more important ones. But I think maybe we'll see something like that come over. But that's a different conversation. We were talking Admech, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It applies to Admech as well.
Yeah.
No, so another just little combo with the Sulphur Hounds is there's a special Forge World that gives them an extension to that aura. So they have a -1 toughness, -1 strength, 3-inch aura that applies to vehicles and anything else. So combine that with just moving up to be close to something, and then if you back that with the Mars gunline, then they're at -1 toughness while you're at +1 strength. So that can be really, really horrendous as well.
Yeah, that's what I was. Tom, we talked about this last week when we only saw the +1 strength, but a lot of what you
about
were
the
saying.
comparison between that and Stygies and Mars when you're taking things like Cataphan breaks.
Yeah, and it because of the different strength values, but being able to reduce the toughness is obviously going to change that, because it's a +1 and -1 at the same time. So
Yeah, I mean, but you're modifying the value of the weapon that's firing at you. You're not modifying the roll itself, which means modifying the strength value is only useful insofar as how much it affects the wound roll, right? Whereas if you've got like a flat -1 to wound, that's obviously like directly better. The question is whether or not that's better than -1 to hit when you've got so much access to things that give you flat rerolls to hit regardless of modifiers.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yep. So 3 units left, the flyers. So the Fuselave is, I think, the one that most of us have been thinking is the best. So that's the bomber, 110 points, 130 with the chaff launcher to give it a serpent shield.
The mandatory chaff launcher, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, 20 points.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. Especially as you can just fly back and repair it.
You can fly off the board as well and then come back on.
Yeah, that's true. But it also, I don't know if you know or if you saw it, but it can pivot twice during its movement, which means it can do like a 180-degree turn and just leave the other way.
Can I just say that I cheered a little bit when I read that? Yeah. I cheered a little bit, and then I was like, "Fuck you, Eldar!" I was so excited. Yeah, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be flying everywhere."
You were so excited about more Eldar rules.
Yeah, maybe they get it too. Who knows?
But that's pretty big, right? That's pretty big.
Yeah, because you could like in a Dawn of War scenario, you can just place 3 in the middle of the line, just run them all up to your opponent's deployment zone, turn 90 degrees, just run into a corner, and then just turn with it every way you want, and then the next turn just go way over across the table, because you move about 70 inches anyway. So you can just crisscross wherever you want to go, or if some of them get damaged, just drive by a unit, bomb them, go back to a tech priest, double repair for 1 command point.
I love that idea though. It's just constantly flying out, bombing, coming back, getting repaired for reloads, and going out. That looks cool.
At that point, you're just a Deliveroo driver. You're coming back from watching.
Yeah, and I mean the stratagems to turn off auras and to get the Thunderfire Cannon stratagem. I mean, that's just gravy. That's perfect. Such a tool.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we were talking about with that is specifically turning off defensive auras, because with the offensive ones like reroll to hit, you can just walk out the way. But exactly. Yeah, it doesn't really matter if they're all dead because you just turn off. Well, you don't have a 5+ invulnerable save anymore. Good luck.
Exactly.
Can you think of any good defensive auras that we're talking about that you'd like to be would be a target?
Mainly marine ones, right?
Yeah, like a Deradio 5+ invuln bubble.
Oh,
we don't talk about Forge World here, Nikos.
Okay.
Drones spring to mind. Are they an aura or not?
Yes.
Oh, that's spicy. I didn't even think about that. No.
Probably is, because it's an ability because they have to be within 3 inches.
Yeah, that's an aura ability.
It's got a range to it, so it must be.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, that's another thing we put on our list. Like, could you please clarify what an aura is? Because we don't want to do that to the poor Tau players.
No, we do. We absolutely do. So
what you do?
Boring,
There's no sympathy for Tau players.
There's zero sympathy for Tau here. Harlequins, though, can we not do that to the Harlequins? That's what I'd like to see. Listen.
Yeah, the -6 to range. That's awesome. You can just turn it off.
I mean, nobody really matters when you just fly into someone's face with 9-inch Stygies scout and then fly your planes up, and then you're just within 12 inches anyway, or whatever it is.
Yeah, but it is good, especially if you can.
And then you explode. Great.
What's cool about it is it's not baked into the data sheet. It's a choice you can do it. So if it's not something that's important, you're not paying any extra to achieve the aim, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
What
It's
is
like
the,
it's embedded in the points cost.
yeah?
Yeah, and you need to have a plane without the shaft launcher to get that strat, because it requires you to have a enhanced data tether or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks good. But maybe you could do like the bombers with shaft launchers, and then maybe do one of the other flyers just for that option, like a Stratoraptor just hanging out in your backfield, going back and forth, shooting long-range weapons. And
So
if it needs to, just move it up.
So how do you rate the 3 flyers overall? Like,
Fusilier I would take 3 if I could, definitely. I mean, because it gives you that first turn kill as well. You can just go over and bomb stuff and shoot it with stubbers. You don't need line of sight, or you'll get line of sight once you're over there. So, and since they're so cheap, I mean, 110 points, that's what we pay for the disintegrators. It's like an auto-include.
The transport
for the bombers.
as well, right?
Yeah, transport costs 100, so I still think I prefer the skimmers over this one at 73 points. So we'll see what the points cost balances out to with the 9th edition, of course. And then the Stratoraptor, I think, is currently 108 points, but that's because of the typo. So probably 138 with the phosphor blasters and 158 with the shaft launcher.
How many typos for points can you fit into one book?
It's just one, and it affects
just
both
the
And the Cataphrone 0 point phosphor
it's the
blasters,
same
right?
thing, right?
Oh, it's the same
No,
thing.
it's not.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's the Castellans.
Yeah.
They have the same weapon.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one. And there's also some kind of support weapon for the riders, for the sulfur riders. That costs 15 points each. And I think that's a bit too much.
Yeah.
You think that should be like 5 or something?
Probably yes.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so the bombers you think are really good, but just also because of how cheap they're coming in. Do you think the transports are viable, like the plane transport?
I don't know. If the FAQ, the transports, like the skimmer transports, to not be able to hold jump infantry and they miss the transvector, I might include those just to get that extra disembark on my sterilizers, but then you can only have 6 each transport. But I think that could be a good utility for them. And then maybe have like one that you can just sacrifice to turn off auras if you need to. Something like that. But no, I can't really see any use for it otherwise. It's still a good model. I mean, 100 points is not that bad for that. It's a good toughness chassis with -1 to hit. So
yeah,
they gave our flyers toughness 7 and 3 up armor. They don't really look like they need it. They should have it, but they've
got paper wings and they're still toughness 7.
Yeah, I know.
-1 damage.
It's easy to repair. You just paper mache and just fix it. Yeah.
But and are they wounds cap of 12?
10.
Yes. 10. Well, you know.
But with the shaft launcher, it's still like, you really want to shoot this -1 toughness 7 2 up cover save, dude. That ignores 1 damage. I mean, is it really worth it? I don't know. I mean, also that we can just select cover to give all our flyers 2 up armor, even if you're really close. That's so good.
And they're not the main threat, right? They're utility pieces that are doing other jobs. They're not your main focus.
No, exactly.
Yeah, they're not the pick of the list.
When we swap topics, I've got a little thing I want to add in that's just happened.
Okay, all right, that sounds fun. But we'll do that at the end. We'll bring that in. So the flyers. There's no other units, right? The flyers. We've seen the jump pack guys and the sulfur hounds. I don't think we've seen anything else released.
No, that's the new one. So apart from that, just to mention a few of the old honorary mentions, the Dakabots can now have a guaranteed 3-up invo first turn with the Lucius trait. That's quite powerful.
It's very powerful. Yeah.
Is that the Castellan robot? Sorry.
Yes, exactly. They can fall back and shoot from a warlord trait. So why not? Means you can't lock them, of course.
Yeah, that was a good thing, right? Like they used to get locked up pretty easy.
Yeah, exactly. But if 9th comes around and vehicles can shoot into combat, then you don't really need to fall back with them.
So are the robots vehicles then?
Yeah.
They're vehicles, yeah.
Oh, nice.
They explode
I thought they were like... Oh, okay.
Yeah, they explode with D3. So you can explode each of them for 1 CP, as the game goes. And of course Mars, with all those shooting buffs with +1 strength, and each 6 causes an AP, extra AP -1 and an extra additional hit. If you're within half range, you get an extra AP. So yeah,
There's a lot of stacking of buffs on the Admech specifically.
there are. And someone in the group came up with, hey, Transuranic Arquebus, strength 8, minus, minus 1 extra AP at 30 range, rolling 6s, extra hits. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. And of course, just about over 100 stubber shots at strength 5 is also really good, causing extra hits on 6s, causing extra AP on 6s. That's
where would that be coming from? That would be coming from the transports, right?
Yeah, if you're on the transport list.
So
I
what's
think the extra hits on 6s? I thought that was models within 6, not units.
It is models within 6.
Would that be really hard to pack all the transports in? Yeah.
Yeah, but you can like have 5 just standing in like a half circle around a guy within 6. So they just need to touch it. They don't need to be wholly within, of course. But it's harder with big Cataphron units, of course. And that's as well with the 5-up Feel No Pain for Cataphrons. Obviously, that's also models. Someone did a diagram in the Facebook group, but I don't remember how many you could squeeze in there. But I think it was, I don't know, about 30 actually, if you really squeeze it around. Yeah.
You get really tight.
But that's just a big blob, so I'm not sure about that. And also, the Warlord traits don't activate until the start of your turn, so you don't get that 5-up Feel No Pain when the opponent shoots you first turn. You do, however, get the 4-up Invo if you want.
I mean, that is good.
Yeah, and then the 3-up Invo when you do the acquisition strat. That used to be only a 4-up, so they also can also have a 3-up Invo really easy now.
That's insane. That is insane. That's on a lot of wounds as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you feel like the new stuff has affected traditional builds, and do you think there are new ones?
Yep, definitely. Everyone's talking about Mars because that was really popular build. Like Admech, as you said, was a lot of people ran it as a shooting army, and now it's an even better shooting army because it shoots more and better, and it can now fall back from combat. So, yeah.
So that's just a better version of itself.
Yeah, that's a build that's so like the main Admech builds that people are running is actually going to be a lot more viable, I think. And then the specific ones like the transport spam, I think is really good still. It hasn't received any huge buffs to it, but apart from if you're being able to put jump infantry into your transports, then obviously you're gonna see a lot of 30 sterilizers along with your 30 priests, especially if you don't need to take that troop tax that we used to be able to get command points. So yeah, that's a good one. The breacher list, of course, you could run that with all those improvements to shooting and being able to fall back and shoot if you run the Styges Canticle. But I think you'll just run the Lucius one because it's so good just to get that extra info. And that's even like really good on the shooting list as well. Like I said, with the Castellan robots with a 3-up info, I think I'd prefer that over strength 7, actually. And you can get my ignore penalty for moving from the Vigilus detachment for 1 command point. So yeah, I'd definitely go with the Lucius one if I was running Dakabots. I would, of course, run Call with them and do them as Mars to get the Mortal Wound strat, but I would have a little Lucius Warlord in the back. Give me that. Unless they FAQ it, which I think they should.
Okay, all right. Do you think there are any new builds like available now that we haven't seen?
Well, just an ultra mobile list, really. Like that Alpha Strike with like 3 units of the really cheap Raiders and perhaps 3 units of Sterilizers and some Sulfur Hounds. Just run them as Styges and just go full ham into your opponent's lines. You should be able to get close enough to like shoot off screens and charge in and tag stuff and just make the opponent sit in their deploy for the rest of the game if they have more of a static army. If they can deep strike, you can cover the entire board. And what's really good about the Raiders is they have a stratagem for 2 command points. If they're declared as a target, they just move 12 inches in the charge phase. So having them as a forward screen, you just stretch out 9 of them just across your front screen. And then if you go second against Raven Guard or something, yeah, of course they'll probably shoot you off the table. But if you face any like bloodletter bombs or stuff like that, then they declare a charge on you, and you just move 12 back, and they can't charge you.
I mean, you have to be really careful playing Grey Knights as well against that, because what you can end up doing is firstly, Grey Knights are very short range to a degree, so you can end up pushing them off so they don't hit the back stuff. But also, if you're deep striking a lot of Grey Knight stuff, a lot of people don't realize this. If you play it right, you can often cover the entire board and stop anything from deep striking.
Yep, absolutely.
And no one abuses it, but Admech are one of those armies that absolutely can.
Yeah, I found that with the transport lists, because I have 3 battalions in that, so I have so many like little units of 5-man ranger squads. Just
exactly.
And they just go out here and there, and the transport scout up and just arc way up the battlefield.
You've got a big footprint as well. Look at the size of those transports. They are chunky boys.
They are.
Yeah.
I think actually one of the things that sounds really good for Admech in the future, especially only based on one battle plan that we've seen, but the capacity for Admech to have some reliable-ish shooting, but also some decent combat, but most importantly, mobility, which they seem to have only got more mobility. I've always felt that mobility was the issue for Admech, and obviously with the introduction of the transport, which is still fairly new, right?
Yeah. The transports, that's a game changer with the transports, because you can use them to like score points. Or I always, like in my breach release, I always brought one. No one could be in it, but it was a great engineer piece because it had toughness 6 and -1 to hit and 3 of armor. I could repair it, so those Thunderfire cannons, they couldn't kill it.
Can transports do 9-fed actions?
Oh, we don't know yet. But
I think so. I think so, because I actually saw that on the pillars scenario. It said just shows a unit and they can tap the power. I'm like, that's going to be my transports being all over, just tapping the power of those.
Well, but you know what that's going to mean, though, don't you, Ricard?
No.
Wave Serpents can do it too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. we're back full circle.
Oh, no!
It costs twice as much as a transport. So.
And you're not removing them.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the really interesting things about that, I'm glad you brought that up, is that both... oh, God, I actually lost my own point because someone made a joke in the chat and then I forgot what I was going to say. What was it? Mobility?
Curse you, chat. Ruin the show.
I don't know. They just said, "Can toast is toast." And then all I thought was that red dwarf scene. It was like, "Would you like some toast?" Like, I don't know if you remember that. I can't get it out. I was going to make a point. Has anyone got a point to make while I'm talking it through?
We're just going to sit here awkwardly.
I was going to ask Ricard. It seems like the Admech army is going to revolve around a lot of shooting in a bubble. You know, stacking all those buffs in a bubble.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, like, the new missions. We think they're going to make you want to spread out and score points. How do you feel your army's going to manage that?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the transport list. I think it's the best. We'll see. Depends on the missions, of course. But I mean, you might have the best Mars gunline net list in the world, but if the opponent is hiding behind obscuring terrain, what do? You fire 3 Belleros cannons at it, and you do nothing.
I think it is going to depend, though. So I'm obviously waiting to see what the WTC missions look like and specifically pairings. But we were talking a little bit before you went online as well, right, about how I feel personally that Admech lists vary very differently between singles and teams, because you can take an Admech list as a team list to say, okay, we're going to put this down, we're going to put it on the emptiest board possible, and in that case, then you can just take a castle of utterly ridiculous shooting.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just fall back if anything touches you. Yeah, and just use a couple of transports. Maybe use 2 just to block out stuff so that you can still fall back.
As a screening unit, exactly.
Right? Exactly.
I actually think this conversation's really up the viability. Like, I know obviously that Admech transport's good, as are Wave Serpents, but maybe the viability of transports.
You only know that when you actually buy the transport, Rob, because that's the only place you can find the rules.
Yes.
Until the app's out.
Until the app. Watch out.
It should be in the new book at least.
Yeah, but surely just the fact that those transports can do actions does up the viability of transports just all over, right?
Oh yeah.
Like as a thing, just they're there.
Didn't Reese and Frankie talk about that on Frontline Gaming, and they hinted like lists with lots of transports would be good. Really vaguely.
They did also say that at the start of 8th edition, as I was at FLG playing loads of orc trucks in a game, but pre-8th edition, and they were like,
But you
orc
also
trucks are
said
going to
that-
be good.
sorry.
Yeah, and they were like, orc trucks are going to be good. I was like, are they? Like, cool. That sounds exciting. And then I
They also
watched.
said Grey Knights are going to be good in 2017.
Yeah, like this is one of the good things that Tom pointed out earlier. There's a lot of like what the game designers intend, and then what the competitive community will actually create
does
from
with
their
it,
game.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if hordes are going to be that nerfed. I mean, it could just be that blast weapons do max hits against or max shots against hordes. That's why they're nerfed, and vehicles can shoot at stuff they're in combat with, maybe at -1 or something. And maybe that's the whole basis of vehicles are better and hordes are nerfed. You don't know. You don't know until we see more. That's the only thing we know so far. And of course, with the command points issue, so that means that you'll be penalized for maybe bringing lots of hordes. But I mean, hordes aren't necessarily like lots of units. They're just big units. I mean, you could still put quite a few models into a battalion. You don't need to have 3 battalions to run a shitload of orcs. I mean, of course, the grots, they will you have to run big grot units in that case.
Yeah, it then comes down to whether or not you need bad moons for something like a unit of tank busters, or if you need death skulls for a SAG, for example. In which case, it may even be worthwhile because you're pouring so many CP into that SAG anyway. It might just be worth it.
I think also it feels like some of the stuff like that Admech has got in spades in this particular book, but we might see in the new edition to kind of bring things to a circle is that MSU might effectively be like we talked about transports. A lot what you've said here, Rickard, relies on like you have a lot of stuff that's able to be very mobile, and then that seems like that will be very good when you want to do. Like when you want to do these actions or when you want to do these stratagems, like the transport's job is effectively to transport. And once that job is done, if it's just gaining you VPs by existing and sitting on places and doing things, I think that's fascinating.
But
really
the transports can do so many things. Actually, I don't know if you saw, but Richard Siegler played a few Admech games lately on their stream.
Yeah.
And he used his transports really, really well to just block off so that like flying units and so on cannot move over that wall because it's more than 2-inch coherency. So either everyone has to fit on the other side of the transport in for example, a Shining Spear unit, or no one can. And they all have to stay on the other side, maybe pop a transport, probably not with their shooting, but probably in combat, and then the priest just disembark behind it.
And buys you a turn as well. Yeah. But also, you just make sure that they can't actually place behind you without being partially within an inch of that model, because you physically can't do that. You're basically bumping up so much space just by using that.
Absolutely.
We talked a lot. We talked a bit about this a couple of weeks ago when we talked about like we used. You might not have watched the show, Rickard, but we tried to talk about how to define units. And one of the words we came up with was blocking, whether it be aggressive blocking or defensive blocking. And obviously those transports can do that really well. It also sounds like. Honestly, like I've really enjoyed you talking to us about it. And by the way, if anyone's got any questions for Rickard about the new Psychic Awakening Admech or Admech in general, please start putting them in the chat now.
Absolutely.
I honestly had never really considered how mobile the army was up until this point, but even how much more mobile it's going to be in the future. I think that actually seems very different to what I'd thought about. Especially, Tom, when we talked about the boards, like a really mobile army that's able to play into an Admech army that's able to play into a medium or heavy scenery board is actually quite interesting versus the gun line of death.
Yeah, I mean, you could still do that. You could, for example, take Tau as the first put-down list, take the light board, and then you could build an Admech list that can work quite well on the mediums, specifically the transport-based list, because if it can't work on the mediums, then it wouldn't be doing so well on the ITC, specifically because of the boards that they use.
True.
Yes. Do you think that any, Rickard, this is a question for you, like of all those lists, you think the transport one is maybe the most viable? Are there any outside picks? Anything really fun and weird that you think would be fun to try?
No, just the hypermobile one, like loads of the flyers and loads of the jump infantry. Yeah. As long as we can stay in transports, I mean, that would even possibly beat the current transport list with the Fulgurites. I'm not sure. No, I still think Fulgurites are really good. Nothing really beats having a 2-up invo unit, just messing up your opponent's day, and then also having like 10 tanks which they can't really afford to deal with. It's awesome.
32 mortal wounds can probably give it a go though.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's from. I know what that's from.
Very nice.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that Nick is excited. I reckon Nick reckons the Necrons are going to take him out whenever we get the Necron stuff. I think also, I got a question for you, Rickard.
By the way.
Consistently worried about the new Necron book.
Yes.
I have a question for you as well. How do you feel about the fact that the points that we're seeing now more than likely aren't going to be the points that we see in the next edition? Obviously, we've seen intercessors have gone up in points, cultists have gone up in points. Do you feel like do you feel like the points that are in now are great and they can't really afford to go up, or based on the intercessor increase, what would you expect to see?
So that's another thing. I mean, comparing the cultist to the intercessor, the cultist got a 50% points increase. Yeah. That's also something to strengthen the fact that they are punishing hordes. I don't know, maybe. So we'll see. I really enjoy building a list around, now that we have so many different units. I mean, what really stood out is the raiders, which are so cheap right now. And if everything gets like a 16-15% price increase, I mean, it's still going to be the same thing. The same units are still going to be good. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, they could bring down, if they bring down breachers even more, then that's an incentive to take them. If they bring down the dragoons, that's an incentive to take them. So we have units that don't see that much play, like Rust Stalkers, for example, and they're probably not going to make it in, even though they're so cheap now. The stratagem they got...
they're still not good enough.
No, they're still not good enough. Well, you can build builds around them with actually getting AP on them now, which is nice. And they are faster than Fulgurite, so they have a 21 average charge out of the vehicle with the Manipulus. So that's good. So you could do something like that, but then you lose out on Styges, for example. And you want them to be Styges so you can scout move and actually push them, or place them on the line and fall back 9 inches if you're going second, and things like that. So there's a lot of play with mobility. I still think Styges is going to be the best Forge World, because I really, really love the mobility, and a -1 to hit across the army is just facing Tau, for example. It's not really a game.
Well, I guess also one of the other key elements there, talking about that, especially with Styges, because that's one of my go-tos, is obviously with them +1 to hit, -1 to hit. I feel like that also massively benefits armies that are already good at hitting. Yeah. You know, like threes to hit, so Marines, Admech, etc. How do you feel that plays into Admech at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, if they cap it to -1, then good. Styges already got max, then that's just a bonus. So
yeah, I'd agree with that as well.
I came up with a bit of a janky list. Let's see, what was it? I forgot about it now.
Okay.
It was probably so out there and so strange that I'll bring it up if I come to think of it again.
One of my favorite units.
Here it is. Now I remember it. It's the Dragoon list with the just run a lot of Dragoons and do the Metallica Canticle for -1 to hit within 9 inches, which is quite nice. So that's both for close combat and shooting. And also, they got a new stratagem for 1 command point for -1 in combat. So you can have -2 Dragoons in combat now, which is quite nice.
But it will only be -1, right? Because it's capped.
True, it is. And that's,
yeah.
True.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Currently, in 8th edition, you could do it.
Yeah, currently, yeah. Like, as someone who, by the way, owns 12 Dragoons, fully painted, ready to rock, yeah, they've only ever let me down. Emotionally and physically in game. But I would like there to be Dragoon list that works.
I can remember playing you, Rob, with them, and you beat me with them. So
yeah, but I took them to the tournament, and then I just would run 6 of them into a night, and I'd be like, "Come on, lads!" And it was a disaster. So
they're really not bad in ITC. I mean, having to deal with 36 vehicle wounds before you get 1 kill point, and they don't give up gangbusters anymore.
Yeah, and also they're also a really viable option to stick into other armies beyond Styges, because they're naturally -1 to hit. So in the future they might see some more play in other Forge Worlds.
Absolutely.
Which I think is fun.
The Taser Goats went to only exploding on 6s, So we're a bit fearful that will happen to the Taser Lances as well, because currently they explode on a 6+, which means you can give them exploding on a 4-up, of course, when you spend a stratagem for +2. So hopefully they won't go up to just pure 6s as well. Then if they remain the same cost, then I don't think they will be that viable anymore, sadly.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'd like to see them just with a few more attacks. Like, that would be nice, just generally. I always felt like it was a little bit. There was a little there was a little bit too little, really. But yeah, I think that's a good point. We might actually see a lot of stuff losing the 6+s, and there might be a lot of flat 6s, or maybe it'll just go to a 5 or something. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah.
Chucklebutt in the chat. I still have PTSD about those goddamn dragoons when they were -2 to hit in Styges. They're the best. So questions. I'm gonna see what questions we have in the chat. Unless Tom and Nick, you have any.
I have one question. So one of my favorite Admech units is the troop choice that gives you that have the rad saturation, the -1 toughness debuff. I love that as a unit. Have you ever used that in a competitive list? And
yes, I always. My current list that I've been running, I think about 10-ish games now. I lost once to Blood Angels list. It was really good, but I have 3 units of Vanguards, and I have one vehicle with 2 units of 5, and the other unit of 5 is in the car with my Dominus, who has the Prime Hermeticon to get rerolls for the priests and the Inquisitor. And these two Dune Riders, I always have like really close to the front lines. Maybe like baiting them to actually destroy one, so I can just disembark and go into something along with my priests, because then I manipulate the Canticle.
Oh, we've just lost you for a moment there, Rickard.
It sounds gone, bro.
We just lost your mic. Sometimes that happens. Might be a Skype thing. Who knows? No need to panic. But it sounds like you're on fire with whatever you were saying. Are you still there?
Oh, I'm back now. Yeah. I use them every game. Just throwing them into toughness 4 Marines or toughness 5 Centurions or aggressors, just to get that down, and using it in conjunction with the 2 command point strat. That means you can at any time change the Canticle. So I select cover just to get that on my vehicles, and then when I countercharge with my priest, I just 2 command points. I'm up to strength 6. You're down to toughness 3, and then just kill everything. So yes, they are crucial. They are really force multiplier to be able to lower toughness and increase strength.
Oh wow!
Just enough so you need it. I mean, if I lower some toughness 5 stuff to toughness 4, then I don't really need the extra strength for the priest, because then they're wounding on 3-ups. But you have a lot of flexibility with that. And they also are surprisingly good when they get those 6s to wound and actually do damage too.
Yeah.
And the opponent fails maybe a couple of saves, and it's like, whoa, you just did 6 damage to my vehicle or something. Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah. Nice unit.
Yeah, and the Sulphur Hounds having the same ability, I won't use them because they can't be in a transport, which means they will not be safe from shooting. So people will be able to pick them up with Thunderfire or something.
Would you take them using the new the outflank
deep strike?
The new deep strike mechanic.
No, because we don't really have any viable way of getting across a 9-inch charge, except for teleporting and Manipulus, giving them +1. And there's a new warlord trait that lets you reroll charges, but not like orcs. You have to reroll the whole charge roll.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know. 8's rerollable. It's okay, but it's not that good, sadly. And they can only move, but they can move 12. So
yeah.
I mean, only is still fairly slow in 40k in real terms.
They can still advance and fire as well, but it's
they can't advance and charge, and you need
they can't
to be within 1 unless you run that special Forge Whirl, of course. But then you're looking at another battalion because you probably want Styges or Mars or something as your primary. So now I don't know. Maybe in a Styges just alpha striking list with all the new stuff, just to bring them up there along the raiders, along the sterilizers, and just to get them into stuff turn 1 if you can. Yes, like a 5-man unit or something, just to okay, I want that unit to have -1 toughness. I'll join the sterilizers or the raiders, because raiders have strength 4 base, sterilizers have strength 5, so that's also very good grounds for manipulating toughness and strength.
Yes.
So maybe a 5-man unit as a tactical asset could be good.
Okay, that's good. We've got a question here from Dude Our Day. He's asking about Electro Priests specifically.
Yep.
You might not know this, Rickard, but our Age of Sigmar show host on Monday, he quite often when he gets into street fights always does it completely naked. It's a very weird thing he does. He just gets fully naked. Dude Our Day asks, are Electro Priests so good because they wear only half their clothes, like Nathan like Nathan? I'll expand on the question though, other than being half naked. What is it like? Yeah, there you go. What is it about the Electro Priest specifically? Why are they in the transports over everything else in the Mechanica book?
Because of their ability to get 2-up invo and their ability to do mortal wounds. That's the combination. Yeah.
Yeah. And how many do you normally run?
30.
Wow, 3 blocks of 10.
Yeah, three blocks of 10 because they can be in the transport. I've looked at running 3 blocks of 20 and just deep striking them, but then you suffer with the 8-inch charges from deep strike, so I don't think that's viable. But the Jazz Hand priests got a new nice stratagem to give them -2 AP on their shooting. So like a block of 20 of those in Lucius would really, really do damage with strength 5 and -2 and exploding hits on 6s, and if you run that with the bubble, you get extra hits from those 6s and extra AP from those attacks. And with Daedalus, you explode on 5-ups, so they could really, really do a lot of things.
That's amazing.
The problem I have with like stuff that can shoot is that you can't always shoot because sometimes stuff is in melee with you, and then you're out of options if you can only deep strike a really nice shooting army, but the opponent has screened you out, so you can't get to what you want. But if you run 30 priests in boats, you can get to what you need in the midfield and actually do damage to it.
It's also fairly.
I meant to sit there and not die.
Yeah, it's also fairly unique, right? Like because there is a lot of shooting in 40k. Like so, the ability to actually like engage several times with like more than one unit. Nick, surely you're loving the idea of some charges. Nick loves a good bloodletter bomb. A bunch of naked priests.
But to be honest, this edition, I don't think the bloodletter bomb, unless if the detachment rules and the CP rules are the same, I don't think I'm going to be running the bloodletter bomb because I don't think I have enough CP. But I'm super keen on running Chaos with lots of Khorne Berserkers and stuff like that, or just Chainsword.
Yeah,
Red Corsair guys.
Yeah, Berserkers are really, really horrible. Red Powell, I played against him in LVO this year, and he beat my Breacher list with 3 Dreadclaw drop pods full of Berserkers.
Oh, really?
They were so horrible.
Yeah, strong.
No, but they just went across half the board and just fought thrice or something and piled extra.
And you could walk time the Dreadnoughts as well. Yeah. I played against that list in Manova Invitational. It was fucking rough.
And that's all my tanks locked and all my breachers killed, basically.
Oh, that's amazing. That's like it's a bit like when we played the other, before lockdown, Nick. So it feels like the other week, but also somehow 3 months ago. When I was playing against all those Marines that you had, there was so many Marines. Too much.
Yeah, but you also had so many Met guns that I
only 18. The normal amount. I've had the same amount of Met guns since the start of 8th edition that I've had now. I've never changed. I've never. Everyone else copied me. The big question is: have you used Priest? Says Disco Jedi in the Termite drill.
Yes, I have 3 termite drills. I've tried them out. Not the shooty variant, which is really good because you can do 12 Jazz Hand priests as Mars and get them to deep strike. And if you have Daedalus close by, I think you do maybe not as many mortal wounds as a unit of 6 Castellans with Call, but almost as much because you have exploding 5s and 6s, and then just all the 6s you roll become mortal wounds. I have tried them out as same as Richard Siegler did. Like he ran 2, I think, or 3 with priests in them. And yeah, they can punch back and everything, but I value more to have, instead of 1 drill, actually have 2 Dune Riders, because that's over twice the amount of wounds and a lot more mobility. They're faster. I don't really care about them. I can throw them away, blow them up. And obviously 2 has the double amount of transport capacity. And what I'm running is 3 battalions. So it's really important for me to have every ranger embarked so that I don't give up easy kill points turn 1 versus Thunderfire cannons and the likes.
Guys, Termite drills Forge World.
Yes.
Right, there we are then.
Tom's like, what? So Vort says, so this is a question, and we'll try and, unless you've got any final thoughts, Ricard, final words on destroyers.
Oh yeah, destroyers are really good. A friend of mine, Martin, probably Sweden's second best Admech player. Who knows? I haven't really played against him, but he's a good friend of mine from back in the days, and he's done really well. He's won a couple of RTTs over in Westeros, which is probably the Warhammer capital of Sweden. And
is that an actual place?
Did you say Westeros?
Yes, Westeros. It's spelled Westeros, but the thing is, it's got a place called Björnön right outside, which is actually translated to Bear Island. So there's a lot of Westeros.
Yeah, there's a lot of references.
If he was there, like when he wrote the book, you're like, yeah, I'm going to use this name.
Well, he took a lot of inspiration from European history, so I wouldn't be surprised if he took some location names as well.
The lady who plays the thingy on Bear Island, she lives just in Derby, which is like 10 minutes away from
Poor
Nottingham.
girl.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, but on destroyers, of course. I mean, they are also a lot more viable now, having the 5-up feel no pain option as well. But he's been running, I think, 6 Lucius Grav destroyers, so sort of like the Space Marine Grav drop pod, being able to drop in and just give them +1 to hit with the Dominus, so they're up to 3 ups, or maybe even 2 ups with Dr. D, Daedalus. The problem I've had with them is the resilience when someone actually shoots at them back. But I mean, deep striking them can obviously solve that problem. So you can go in somewhere on a flank where you maybe not as threatened. But with the new Lucius, I mean, they get a 4-up base invo, which is really good. And they can also go to 3-up. So just deep strike them and string them out to close to an objective, and just they're a 3-up invo, big blob of 12 destroyers, immune to morale because you have Cody S or something nearby. They can really put down the hurt.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for that. My friend plays Admech Knights. Why am I so scared? Says the Stoic. Punstuff says, question: do you still think Knights have a place in Admech?
If they don't nerf the canticles, then obviously +1 strength on your Crusader is not that bad on all its weapons. Yep. For example, or having an extra 4-up invo on one of your knights for 1 command point. So there are a couple of interactions with the new canticles that could be interesting.
I just on that, I feel like Admech can have a place with knights, but I don't know if putting 1 knight in with Admech works the other way around, because I don't know what kind of win condition it plays towards. If you're playing for like a shooty list, then you could put a knight in. It's like, well, I could just take the Cataphrons, like the put down first list we were talking about earlier. If you're playing with the transports, you say, well, I'm taking a knight because it's good at shooting and it can block. Well, you're better off again just taking more Scorpiuses.
Exactly.
So if you're going for like an optimal list, then I don't think you put the knight in ever. But I think if you want to, if you enjoy playing the knight, you can still go for it. But I just wouldn't.
And you're still pure ITC faction, which is
right.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd be so excited to see what secondaries are going to get taken in the future, what actions are going to happen. Ricard, I think that was personally, I've loved listening to you talk about that. So thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
No, you were wonderful. That was brilliant. Tom, you said that there was something. Go for it. There's a thing.
The WTC Facebook page has posted a question for all of you guys to answer. And the question is, without looking at the stats, which nation do you think has been the strongest representing nation in terms of results and final placing over the last 4 years? What do you guys think?
Russia.
Nikos? I'm not giving the answer, by the way, because I have all the stats. But
Poland.
Okay. Ricard?
UK.
UK? I'm not sure that's a team, mate.
What's the answer?
I can't give you the answer. Neil will give you that on the Facebook page later if I was to give it to you here. But let's put it this way. There's a lot of people down here posting USA.
And it's not them.
Now, I'll tell you for free, it's not that.
Okay.
it's not even close to that. Go and give your answers on the WTC.
I can't wait to know if it's Russia. I don't know why, but Russians scare me. Also, Rick, I can just tell you... no, not Russians. the Russian team, if I was to play against them, I imagine they're great, is what I'm trying to say. Rickard, did you also know that the Falcon, who I'm a big fan of, the guy that's 40k Stats Center, he always says that when he's looking for competitive 40k future, like, community leaders, well, not community leaders, but like list leaders, he always turns his eye to Sweden, which I find quite fascinating. So I've loved hearing you talk about that. Thanks. I will include the Facebook group link in the show notes below. So, like, if anyone who's listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube wants to go in there and join, I'm sure you're always looking for more servitors, right?
Of
to
course.
join your ranks.
I've already joined during the course of your show, so go for it.
I think the final question before we head out for the day. Obviously, don't forget you can join me live. You can join me live every day. Actually, tomorrow is day 80 of the stream streak, so that's 80 days in a row, which is fun. And we've got loads more stuff to talk about over the weeks. What was I going to say? Something important. Yes, that was it. That was it. This is my third show today. My question is how exactly do you like your toasted, Rickard?
I think
bread toaster.
I found a good setting for it actually.
yeah?
So it's like setting 1.2 is quite good for if the bread is not frozen. But if it's frozen bread, you need to go up to 2.5 to get that perfect toast.
No one.
So
it
varies.
Sorry. We got to cycle back here. No one freezes bread. I'm saying it now. You freeze bread.
Yeah, I freeze bread.
You don't
What?
Freeze bread.
Of course
So,
you freeze bread.
I freeze bread.
You can toast it and it becomes awesome.
It's
I
wet.
only froze bread
Exactly.
when I was a student.
No,
Otherwise, don't.
It doesn't make any sense to freeze it. Have you never? No, I've never been.
Vort's got it. Vort understands.
It's obviously pre-cut, so you can just like break off the slices and just put them in.
Yeah.
I'm not new to
Never tried
bread.
that?
I know I've never frozen bread in my life. Like,
You're offending a lot of people in the chat now, Rob. Cut while you're ahead, man.
I'm
Come
not
on, just
trying to
stop,
offend
stop.
people, but everyone seems to think that they have. Thank you, very way, Soul to Soul. Thanks for being here. I freeze bread. Frozen bread gets better crust in the toaster. I just don't. What? How do you think they make ice cream sandwiches?
Ancient store.
Oh yeah. Nick, do you freeze bread?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, it's
my god,
nice.
this is fucking outrageous. Okay, cool. Good. So you have it on number 2. Tom, do you know how much you have? Yeah, I'm on my own. This is me. I don't like CP rerolls and I don't freeze bread.
I mean,
Just
I'm a bit
The
scared also
most
because,
important things.
I mean, it's got like up to 6 in setting. So why would you ever use that if frozen bread is good at setting 2? Can you imagine what this can do?
I do
I
kind of
don't want
want
to
you.
know what you can do with your toasting.
It's a Risa toaster, I think.
Yeah, maybe there's a certain type of bread that you need a 6 for, like like a really dense bread.
Yeah.
I really want you to put out the 6 different types of. You're like, this is toasted on 1. This is toasted on 2. I want to see it as a post, like, because I agree with you. I think I've only ever toasted toast. Oh, Retisante, thanks for the bits donation. I think I've only ever toasted toast like a 2 or 3.
As long as you join the Admech group, that's all we talk about. So it's all there in the competitive Admech group.
Oh dear.
Vort says it toast on an unmodified toast of a 6. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Is that some sort of, to get into the Facebook group? Is that sometimes there's like a question to weed out
it's like,
bots? Is it all about
What's your
toast?
favorite Admech units?
Yeah, so just put toaster and you'll be fine. I'll let you in.
Yeah.
No practice forgetting what I put on.
Right, well, before we head out, before next week or just this week, you guys got any plans, 40k plans, or are you just waiting on any hobby plans?
I'm actually going to an RTT, a small one where everyone has to wash their hands before and not share each other's
I feel like
diets.
we should do that anyway. But the pandemic has been fantastic for 40k community standards.
Yeah. No, it's a small one down in Warburg, as it's actually the name of the Swedish town.
Oh, nice,
So,
Warburg.
Nice.
Warburg, yeah. It's got a lot of good players. So that's in 2 weeks.
And it's going to be running 8th edition.
Absolutely. So I'm running my transport list. No FAQ, no go is what we run here in Sweden. If you haven't gotten the FAQ, you can't play with the codex. And also we're doing a summer league right now here in Gothenburg. So also doing that. Played 1 match so far out of 5. and that went well against Raven Guard.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
That's good.
Nice.
That's good. What,
So-
what are the things you don't want to face, or are you okay? You're comfortable with everything?
I think I'm quite comfortable with everything, actually. This list is a lot better than the Reacher list, with that regards.
All right, well, good luck at the event. Please let us know how you actually do. I'd be very interested. We'll
Yeah.
tell people.
I'll post it in the Facebook group.
Done. Well, I'm going to be in there in a minute, posting all the pictures of toast and unfrozen bread. You monsters.
Awesome.
Nick, you got any plans this week?
40k plans. I might start scheming one detachment lists.
Mm.
Because if that's going to be the thing,
Of course.
I might get ahead, start scheming.
Start
Cool.
scheming. Tom, what are you
How
thinking?
many bloodletters?
I've already done that because Grey Knights are a thing. I'm going to continue painting. I also want to give a quick shout out to the 40k Today podcast because I did an interview with them a couple of weeks ago and that dropped today and I've just retweeted it.
Oh.
So if you want to go and check out more me because I'm lovely and you should go and check it out.
Sorry, Nick. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Did I
That's okay.
cut you off?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise.
No, that was me. That was me. Classic.
No, it's fine.
Okay,
Did I-
I'd like-
It's fine.
All right. It's fine. It's fine.
Not saying that,
Well,
it's fine.
if anyone wants to see me on a different interview other than every single day on the show, actually next Wednesday, I am being interviewed by Dave from Mini Wargaming on his show on the Wednesday night about
nice.
the workbook. And if you guys don't know what that is, if you're new here, you can go on to thehonestwargamer.com and I wrote a workbook. It is also applicable to 40k. It's just a workbook that you can go through, especially if you're new. So if you're someone who's new and wants to go through it. So I'm kind of excited by that. I'm also kind of nervous because I hate talking about it. So like,
Also, I'd be nervous because their fans love to just call cheating wherever they see it, even if it's not cheating. So you're telling me barrel nutters.
well, I've met Dave, so I think it'll be
Oh no,
alright.
Dave's fine. Like it's his fans that I don't like.
Yeah. Right.
Massive generalization coming straight in.
Right, well, Rico, it's been a true pleasure. You're a legend. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Tom and Nick, you guys are great. Everyone in the chat, yeah, so Nikos. Oh, no, why are you in the chat, Nick, you weirdo? Dude Arday, Tristan, Bridgebrush, Vort, GCS Peaches, thank you. If you listen to the podcast, please stay hydrated, stay well, love each other. And, of course, thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. Couldn't do it without you. You guys are great. Any final shout-outs? I think we're all good. Head out of here.
Hi, Gozzy.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.